So this is going to be more of a conceptual video. We're talking about an idea that I didn't really see be discussed anywhere else other than an article that I saw on HabsFanatics.com. Now, I'll say this might actually be a pretty commonly held opinion, this might be a very common thought, and if it is, then I just am kinda stupid and I didn't realize it until now. But with the Montreal Canadiens playing off against the New York Islanders 2 days ago, we had ourselves what was an incredible moment for the Habs and the players on the team. Because the only goal scored by Montreal in regulation, the 1-0 goal, was scored by Patrik Laine. And it doesn't really take a genius to understand why that was a really big deal. Patrik Laine hadn't played a regular season NHL game in the span of, a year? Something like that. The guy had been sidelined for a good chunk of his season last year in Columbus with injuries and with spending some time in the NHL's Players Assistance Program. This year he was out because of injuries again. Thank you, Parekh. But all of that came to a close with Patrik Laine's 1-0 goal against the Islanders. It was an emotional moment, it was an impactful moment, it was a paramount moment, and a lot of people would go out there and say that this could be the start of something new. I personally linked the Patrik Laine first goal to memories of the Ilya Kovalchuk run with the Habs in 2020. Yeah, remember the overtime goal he had scored against Ottawa to get things going? The slow as molasses coming in on Drake Batherson goal where Kovalchuk just kind of waited out the goaltender and sniped it far side? Yeah, that and everything else that Ilya Kovalchuk did, I think, with the Habs, that's what this Patrik Laine situation reminds me of. Of course, circumstances are not exactly the same. Kovalchuk was a dinosaur by the time he made the Habs, and he was already infamous in New Jersey Devils lore. Patrik Laine, while he could be seen as infamous in Columbus or Winnipeg lore, it was a much different situation. The guy was coming off of some injury problems, and he's still relatively young compared to Kovalchuk at that time. But still, the magnitude, the stories are alike when you think about the feelings and the emotions behind them. Kovalchuk, with all of this swagger and this star power of yesteryear, bringing itself over to Montreal, he's trying to get himself a revival in his National Hockey League career. He didn't get that with LA. He got that with Montreal. It was emotional, everybody loved it, everybody was riding high. Patrik Laine, I think he's got a similar situation going on here, and I'm just super excited to see it continue. Who knows if he scores more overtime goals against Toronto, for example, like Ilya Kovalchuk did. But all comparing Patrik Laine to former situations of the past aside, I wanted to go over an aspect of the Patrik Laine acquisition and of his play that seriously could change things up for the Montreal Canadiens in the most unexpected way possible. To help us out, we're going over onto an article published on HabsFanatics.com by Elias Ediam. Patrik Laine's return could give Lane Hutson an unexpected gift. Link will be in the description if you want to go ahead and read this article yourself, but this is what the writer Elias Ediam says. Seeing the sparks that Patrik Laine and Lane Hutson generated on the power play during the first game against the Islanders, Martin St. Louis will have no choice but to keep them together on the first power play unit. This could be very beneficial to both players, albeit in very different ways. Hutson, by brilliantly feeding Laine the puck in the power play, could help boost Laine's confidence. Conversely, if Laine manages to score multiple goals, it would bolster the rookie's personnel stats. Could Lane Hutson be on his way to the Calder Trophy with Patrik Laine's help? Individual stats may be secondary in a team sport, but good personal numbers can carry a certain prestige. Hutson could very well finish as the league's top-scoring rookie and win the prestigious Calder Trophy. Despite the Canadiens' storied history, this trophy hasn't been won by a Montreal player since 1972, when goalie Ken Dryden received the honor. And more than 52 years later, the Habs finally have a player with the potential to break that streak. As of this writing, Lane Hutson, with 16 points in 25 games, is second in NHL rookie scorers. Now, if you go over to what the rankings look like today, heading into today's game against the Nashville Predators, by the way, the Preds did play yesterday against the Toronto Maple Leafs, losing 3-2, so who knows whether or not Montreal will be able to take advantage of that. But as of this recording, Lane Hutson is tied for second in rookie points with Logan Stankoven and 3 behind Matvei Michkov. And here's the thing, if any Montreal Canadiens fan is super interested in paying attention to the numbers and the Calder rankings, etc., this is definitely not a new song and dance, especially on this YouTube channel. If y'all remember, I mean, some of y'all are a little bit younger, which I don't fault you for, but if y'all remember the first season I was covering hockey full-time on this YouTube channel, it was 2017-18. I was in my grade 12 year of high school here in Richmond, BC in Vancouver, and there were a lot of conversations about the Calder Trophy because that 2017-18 season was the rookie debut year of one Brock Boeser, and he was so good, so fantastic. If he hadn't gotten injured because Jake Virtanen left the door open and Boeser ended up Cal Clutterbucking himself into the open boards, if Boeser was not injured, he could have, and I honestly believe he would have, won the Calder Trophy that season over Matthew Barzal. The year after, Elias Pettersson won the Rookie of the Year award, so my Canucks brain was very pleased. The year after that, Quinn Hughes was nominated alongside Akil McCarr, and then the years after, we kind of faded away a little bit. And when I say we, I mean Vancouver Canucks fans. There were still other guys in the Calder conversation from my other favorite teams, like Moritz Seider in Detroit, for example. Cole Caulfield was sort of in the running, but not really one of the bigger players in his rookie campaign. This year, though, Lane Hutson has himself a chance to really put himself on the map. And right now, if I were to pause the season and try to determine the Calder based off of what we're seeing just statistically at this point of the year, I realistically do think Hutson has a chance of making it work. Not necessarily because he's the number 1 point guy, but because he's the number 2 point guy and he happens to be a defenseman. Michkov, especially after the the scratchings that were held under John Tortorella and the meetings and the fact that Michkov had himself this opportunity to learn and adjust and actually get up to speed, scoring some really nice overtime goals. The fact that he has been such a high-profile player puts him in that conversation. Macklin Celebrini missed a little bit of time, so he is also right in there too. But Lane Hutson is the second top, scoring rookie who happens to also be a D-man, and that also will help him out because everybody acknowledges that defenseman points are a lot more harder to come by than forward points, and also it can't be understated the impact that Lane Hutson has on this Montreal Canadiens lineup. The thing is, because he was so good with lining on the first power play, Kent Hughes and Martin St. Louis, they may have no choice but to keep these guys on that unit, and to dethrone Mike Matheson to the second unit instead. I don't really think it's a good idea to have 2 defensemen on the top unit on the power play, especially a guy like Mike Matheson who can be very much of a puck hog at times. So seeing Lane Hutson and Patrik Laine develop any sort of chemistry, Lane and Laine, Laine and Lane, it could be best case scenario for everybody involved. If Patrik Laine has a 20-goal season in the remaining games that he has as a member of the Canadiens this year, if he gets 10 of those goals assisted by Lane Hutson, that's awesome. And if Lane Hutson is able to bolster himself up to maybe getting a 30 or a 40-point year and a whole bunch of his assists are Patrik Laine goals, that is also equivocally awesome. And I think there's going to be no Habs fan on the planet that would disagree with that notion. Everybody wants to see this happen. Everybody wants to see Lane Hutson's name be placed alongside the greats-to-be, the Matvei Michkovs, the Macklin Celebrinis, I guess maybe the Logan Stankovens. I mean, he was at the top of the NHL rookie point scoring race for a good chunk of the season, but he then missed a bunch of time there, Stankoven did. So who knows what exactly that rookie race is going to look like by the time the season is said and done. But for now, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Macklin Celebrini, Matvei Michkov, Lane Hutson, these guys being near the top of the points race. In fact, Macklin is number 1 in points per game. He is so good with 15 points in 16 games this season. if Lane Hutson can keep on feeding Laine those clap bombs, then maybe Laine will continue to put himself in the conversation for the Rookie of the Year. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, though, how this entire conversation shapes up. I hope you enjoyed this video. 9, and bye.